and welcome to Iriscope TV, the YouTube channel for www.eggmagazine.net. That is www.eggmagazine.net. Welcome, and let's get started.
Thank you very much, Akem.
As we said before, we'll ask you some 5 basic questions. We want to first ask how you got started. First, to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about who you are.
My name is Emilia Arthur. I'm a Yale World Fellow. I'm 51 years old.
Okay.
I have a lovely baby boy. And I went to St. Mary's Secondary School here in Accra and did my sixth form with Labone Secondary School and continued to the University of Science and Technology.
And there you studied?
Estate management.
Estate management,
Yeah.
okay, all right. And then from estate management to politics, how did that happen?
So it didn't just happen overnight. I think that as a child growing up, I saw in my mother a human being who had issues with injustice, and that if you could address injustice, you did. She was very clear on what was right and what was wrong and what was in between. And I think I picked that from her as I was growing up. So I got to a point in my life where, for example, in Ghana, when we used to have 2 national services, one after you finished your A-level. During my A-level national service, I worked as a regional coordinator for the Greater Accra Regional Students Representative Council.
Okay.
I had an office at the Ghana Education Office, the regional office here in Accra. And my role included organizing residential leadership training for students leaders in the second cycle institutions, and also championing the cause of students. And I remember one of the key issues I was working on at that time was improving the living conditions of students in boarding schools. For example, their food should be good, stuff like that. And I carried on like that. In my community, I saw issues that I felt needed to be questioned. As young as I was, I would question.
How young was that?
I'm talking about 18 19.
Okay. All right.
Mobilizing and organizing people to demand answers to questions that we had regarding things that I felt were not right in my community. Of course, I didn't have a full understanding of how things work, but once I saw it and I felt that it was wrong, I was there
to write it.
Okay. Yes.
All right. So now you were a community activist, a student advocate.
Yes.
From there, you ended up in being in politics.
Yeah.
So how would you say that transition was made?
Okay. So that was some journey. So say after sixth form, of course, you go into the university, you finish university, and there's another national service you do when you finish university then.
Okay.
So I was posted to a community called Fanti Nyankomasi, now called Nyankomasi Ahinko, in the central region. And my life changed because right in that community, I was confronted with the fact that though we were all Ghanaians, some Ghanaians lived differently. And I didn't understand that. I questioned why there was so much poverty. I questioned why there wasn't the kind of drinking water I was used to in Accra in that community. When I was going there, my mother packed whatever you could think of, including a fridge, and I realized that I couldn't use it, things like that. I remember a young guy at the lorry station who seemed mad, who just took to me, and we engaged, and by the time I was leaving the community, the person was sane, So, and then we had students whose academic performance was poor. We joined hands with some of the other national service persons who had been posted there to teach. We went the extra mile, organized extra classes for them, 6 a.m. English classes and things like that. And one day we're sitting around all having a conversation. The place goes quiet, and suddenly these kids are having a conversation in English with confidence. The role that I was playing there was I was supervising community development. So we'll go into more rural communities than where I was to help with water. Then National Service Scheme had a water and sanitation program, so helping dig wells and what have you. And then I saw that it was just a period of 10 months of intervention in people's circumstances, and we saw change. So that thing that was in me about activism, about change, about injustice was ignited again. So I decided that after national service, instead of going into a job like my career, what I had studied in the university, and a job was available and all of that, into land economy and all of that, I rather decided to seek out for an NGO, because at the time, my global view, my understanding was that it was in the world of the non-governmental organizations that you could actually bring about change. So I went to work with an organization called Center for the Development of People in Kumasi. I was responsible for development education programs. And though it was an NGO, what I was working on was questioning why we were in the state of development that we were in. So why is Ghana underdeveloped? Why is Africa in the situation that it is in? But also brought it to the community level. So how come that some communities seem more developed than others within the Kumasi metropolis or even in Ashanti region? So we started all sorts of things.
You said you had some questions when you went through working in the non-profit sector, and I asked you, you know, what sort of questions, not only questions, sorry, but answers did you find? Maybe there were some prevailing questions that never got answered, but tell us some about the questions and the specific answers that you found.
That it was about leadership, the kind of leadership we had as a nation, as a continent, and as communities. It was also about the dynamics between the so-called developed and underdeveloped countries, the sort of the trade agreements that exist, all those dynamics that affect us, affect choices that we made, or affect decisions that are made on our behalf as citizens by our political leaders and global leaders and what have you. So then the whole thing, sense of injustice and justice and all that was beneath began to swell up again. That there's something must be done. Am I the one to do it? No. Can I play a role? Yes. What can I do? So after 3 years of working with the NGO, I felt restless. I am a restless soul anyway. I felt restless that it wasn't doing it. The NGO world wasn't doing this thing for me. Of course, when I was working with the NGO world, we had links with other development oriented organizations in the UK, for example, making the Links project that we were working with. And we had some good outcomes, but it still wasn't doing it for me. So I decided 3 years after the work with the NGO, I got into consultancy. Of course, you have to butter your bread as well. I got into consultancy in the policy area. And then one day it just hit me that actually the place where change can actually occur is where the most powerful decisions are taken and the most powerful players are. And it was in the realm of politics. At the time, that was my understanding. That was what I thought.
And you still stick by that?
Yes,
yes
and no, but yes more than no.
So now first, given the yes, let's address the yes part of it first. How was that like the first day in office when President Mahama, whose office you worked for, what was that like? The elections were announced, and between that transition from when the elections were announced until you walked into the door on your first day of work. Tell me something about that period.
Wow. So we are here now. It's been a journey. And the journey had been that when I decided to get out of NGO world, then though I had been voting and getting into political activism, I wasn't actually seriously involved in partisan politics. So this was the time in my life that I decided, 1998, that it was time to get into the real show. So of course, I mean, I leaned more towards NDC because in the time of my quest, looking for answers, I came across Kwame Nkrumah and his philosophy for this country, and I fell in love with it.
Okay.
So I was more aligned towards Nkrumahism and any set of group that were doing anything that I thought was remotely close to what Nkrumah stood for and what Nkrumah would have done. So I searched. I came across CPP as a political party in this country, but I didn't think that at the time it was still a strong party and solid enough as Nkrumah CPP then. So I looked around and I went to the NDC that I had been aligned with. And at the time, there was a conversation going on within the NDC about the need for reform within the NDC. So I liked what the reformers were talking about. So I joined the reform movement in the NDC, and you know how that ended. So I contested as the parliamentary candidate for Shama constituency.
Okay.
I was young, a woman. I hadn't really lived in Shama, though that's where I come from. Both my mother and father come from there, and it was an amazing period. Elections were in December 2000, and I decided in August 2000 to contest. So I had just a short period to work, and I decided that I was not going to have anything to do with this patronage politics thing. We're actually going out there, bringing some of the NGO experience I had and all that. Sat down with the community. I broke it down, branch level, organization. We really organized and went out there, and we performed creditably, considering the time frame, considering the fact that, of course, I mean, in this context, you know how age and gender are issues that are used against one. But I couldn't be bothered. It was like somebody was pushing me to go out there and do what I did. So I did that. And then later on in 2009, when President Mills won the elections under NDC government, I said all I wanted to do was to become a district chief executive. There were people that said that I was overly qualified for a district chief executive and things like that. I said no. That will be my first time serving in the public sector. I want to start from the very, very bottom. And that also, local government, I think, is critical
very much so
for the development of our people. So if I have anything to offer, I want to start from there. So there was also some challenges around me becoming a DC, but peace prevailed and I was a DC. And I'm very proud again of the work that we did there. In 18 months later on, I don't know whether I was promoted to become the Deputy Regional Minister for the Western region. And it was an interesting time in the Western region, already a region that had a lot of resources of Ghana coming from there, and then oil and gas too had been found. So it was an interesting period that I was Deputy Regional Minister. And also as a Deputy Regional Minister, you are responsible for political organization of the region. So working together with all different groups of people, seniors of the party and things in the region, we really delivered the 2012 elections for the region for NDC. And I was happy, and I felt that now this is time that you sort of step out of the hard political activism, because I also have experience and background in actual policy. So now it's time to now come to the center and help with policy that impacts positively on people on the ground. And around that time too, God being so gracious, gave me my first child around that time. So all the things worked together for me to receive His Excellency John Dramani Mahama's appointment to come and sit in the office of the President and support him with advice and direction in terms of policy to move us to the next stage.
So you were a presidential advisor.
Sort of.
And your interest or your expertise as recognized by the party was to?
As recognized by the party. Okay, that's big. That as recognized by the person who appointed me, in this case His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. It was about supporting with the area of social policy. I am so committed to child and maternal health care, and His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, God bless his soul, is also so committed to that. So it was very easy. And then also we had a very good, As staffers in the office of the president, we don't have direct supervision or control over any of the sectors because they are sector ministers. So you liaise with the sector ministers through the chief of staff. And we did a lot of that. And we had a chief of staff also who gave us a lot of assignments and often would ask for your view on a particular matter. So I worked on that. I also worked on, I don't know if you heard about the 10% deductions from all of John Mahama's appointees from our own salary to support the building of what is called the CHIPS compound. Is a providing healthcare facility at the most basic level. Yes. So I was asked to coordinate that, and I was coordinating that as well.
And everybody gave the 10% willingly?
Yes. It was deducted willingly.
Nobody shed a tear?
That I was in their closet, so I don't know. And then many other things that we can't talk about, but different assignments, supporting in training of newly appointed officers, supporting in preparing newly appointed officers, and any other task that you are asked to do.
Now, a couple of questions. You worked some with the Mills administration, and then you worked a bit with Mahama's administration.
Yes.
And then there's this logic that I like to propound on, that people saw that Mills's first term was actually also Mahama's first term. So some people also, I've heard it say that whereas Mahama thought he had a second term, most people thought that he was already in his second term when he actually had his first term. And the reason why I'm saying that is that I'm sure he was a bit surprised, as were other people in the party, that he was not able to continue his mandate. So given that he lost the election, how was it like the last day? You said something about the first day. How was it like on the last day when you guys exited, the office of the presidency? What did that feel like? Did it feel like defeat? Did it feel like unfinished business? Some people say that he probably wants to come back. So how would you characterize that last day?
I think it felt more like an unfinished business and a huge disappointment, because His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, his actual first term, people should just refer to the Constitution. President Mills had his term. President John Mahama finished President Mills's unfinished term because of his demise. So his actual first term was from 2012 to 2016. That was John Mahama's actual first term. Now, if that was not, he couldn't have contested again. The Constitution, there's no way that would have.
That is true.
He would have contested again on the 2016. But he presided over a very difficult time in our economy. Global trends affected Ghana negatively.
Which ones? Which trends?
Prices of oil fell, prices of cocoa fell. Unfortunately for us, we are still dependent on exporting our raw material instead of, and he had a vision. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama had a vision. He kept talking about diversifying our economy through value addition and all that, industrialization, modernizing agriculture. It takes time for those things to materialize. So we had a first term under John Dramani Mahama with difficult conditions, but working to deliver on some social outcomes, which we did. The SHS buildings, the day schools, the road construction, water projects, quite a number of things. And then there was Dumsor. Dumsor John Mahama cannot be blamed for Dumsor in the sense that Dumsor happened as a result of, as a country, our lack of investment in the different aspects of electricity supply, production, electricity production, distribution, and what have you. Then he inherits a period like that. But he had been working very hard for Mills, very hard to address the issue. And now today we have some respite because of that he did. So he was going to seek a second term where as you know, in driving, you change the gear and you go a higher speed. And that was what we had hoped a renewed term for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was going to put us into to do for this term. But Ghanaians chose a different leader. Ghanaians decided differently because so we are here today.
So one of the things the reason why I made that comment about Mills and Mahama was that I had a conversation with one of our regular Ghanaians, as some of my would want to say, who was a carpenter. And I had a discussion with him. I said, who are you going to vote for in the election? This was around the time of Mills' first term. And he said that he was going to vote for Mills because Mills had tried a third time around and he deserved to win. And then, of course, he got sick, and then his term was up in effect, and Mahama took over. So I think, given that logic, I think people also saw the same thing in Nana Akufo-Addo. It was his third time around, and after all, Mahama had gone into, let's say, dipped into Mills' term. Yes. So they saw that, okay, his also, if he had part of somebody's term and his term, he would have an unfinished two-term presidency, as some people saw it. So then also, given that logic, then at the same time, when Mahama then came in, and then he had all these sort of macro issues to deal with. Now, I heard, for example, from another person saying that, look, building a stadium in Cape Coast did nothing for me. It doesn't put money into my pocket. So it's almost like a trophy. So also, seeing that you work at the local level, how do you think that whatever was needed to be done at the macro level could have been better implemented in hindsight at the local level? Because I agree with you that all in all, it's the local level of governance that really, really matters. It's where people see that government is working for them or not. Where the traffic lights are not working, there are potholes, the schools don't work, etc. So tell me how, given your grassroots organizing and then going to the perch and then looking back down, how do you think things could have been better? Or how do you think things were misunderstood by the voter?
I think that the whole analogy you've given just points to the fact that politicians and all politicians on all sides should try to understand the electorate much more than assume that we know what they want and then we are reaching out to them, and also the things that make them tick. What is it that triggers what action in citizens? And I think it's important that all politicians find that out. I think also that in recognition of the point you're making about the points of convergence from the local to the top and the top is what His Excellency John Mahama recognized, hence the assignment he gave the National NDPC, National Development Planning Commission to come out with Ghana's 40-year development plan, and whichever government is in place works with that. That process took into consideration concerns from the ground, grassroots up. You also have the district assemblies. In fact, our planning process before budget is read, for example, in Parliament, before a program is announced, for example, you would have gone down from the bottom to get consent from unit committee. The most basic political unit in this country is the unit committee, all the way up to the district assembly, through the area councils and what have you, comes to the regional coordinating council, and then it comes to the sectors and comes to the coordinating points, and then macro policies are then developed and implemented later. To the extent that we did that, well, I can't tell. I haven't done that review yet, but definitely it's something that we should look into.
Yes, and I hope that we can come back another time and talk about that.
Absolutely.
Another thing I would like to talk to you about at another occasion when we bring you back for another conversation is about the issue about land
Yes.
and land economy since you studied that.
Yes.
Because I think that's also another.
Yes.
That is almost like a noose around our necks.
Yes.
Emotionally,
Yes.
economically, what have you.
And it's affecting our development.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So Emilia, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. This has been Iriscope TV. We look forward to you coming back. Stay tuned. Thank you.